Welcome, welcome, a Googleplex welcome to JWC Livestream. That's Joe's Writers Club Livestream. Today is a Nidhogg read, which, we've been doing on Mondays for a while now, promoting the book and having fun doing it. But today I have to have a little side first. This is a trigger warning chapter. There's violence, so you've been warned. Trigger warning. This chapter is very violent. I will be warning people because I know there's certain people that have sensitivity to such things. So you have been warned. We are reading from Nidhogg Chronicles, Crusade of Shadows. That's Nidhogg Chronicles, Crusade of Shadows by Richard Andrew Olkus. This is chapter 10, The Tall One. And if you've been following along, you know that there's probably consequences coming to our anti-hero, Ms. Nidhogg. Trigger warning, violence. So if that stuff bothers you. Chapter 10, The Tall One. There were many hybrids, greys, reptilians, and other species of unearthly life moving around the dock area. Nidhogg's saucer was just one of many, parked in a cordoned-off area meant to free up space for offloading cargo. Kayla and Nidhogg walked up to Carnid, the MIB who stood with arms slack, his black hat and suit contrasting the crowd who flowed behind him. The others wore mostly grays, silvers, and white, with only a few clad in chromatic clothing. A short distance away, Nidhogg saw saucers taking off from their docking stations, seeing them buzz off at the speed of compressed gravity. The two hybrids looked up into the MIB's face, with Kayla trying her best to not crack under the stresses of what was soon to come, punishment. Nidhogg didn't seem to care at all, and in truth, she found herself clinging to anger like an old friend in a lurch of bereavement. Who cares what they did to her now? If she had to return to the former life, that soul-crushing routine of stupid missions and joyless pregnancy, then perhaps she would rather die. This, plus the seemingly righteous charge of defending Kayla's way forward, made Nidhogg defiant in the face of whatever she faced, come what may. Hostility gripped Nidhogg as she locked eyes with Carnid, causing the MIB to regard her curiously as he said, "Mistress Nidhogg, come with me." Sorry, folks, sweltering hot in here. And I'm a big man. Nidhogg nodded, and she and Kayla followed him to some kind of processing chamber. Inside this place waited a bureaucracy of Martian logistics, with lines, seated attendees, and bureaucrats at desks, taking data from the frustrated masses. Nidhogg and Kayla were ushered by Carnid past all that and back behind a partitioned wall into some kind of office space. A panel of grays too busy to do anything but peripherally peek from their work saw them come and go. The MIB, pardon me, the MIB brought Nidhogg to a door and spoke under his breath so that only the two hybrids could hear him. "Beyond this door is the Tall One. He wishes to see you first, Mistress Nidhogg. Kayla, you are instructed to wait here." Kayla looked first to Carnid and then to Nidhogg and said, "All right, see you, Nidhogg." The way she said this made Nidhogg's emotional core quiver with anxiety, but she kept it cool and replied, "See you soon, Kayla." Her voice trembled, but as the door opened, Nidhogg saw Amishati swing into view from around a desk, dancing elegantly as always through steps older than human civilization. "Beloved Niddy, there is no reason to be so nervous. I am with you and will protect you. I will never let these lunkheads defile my sweet Niddy. Never." Nidhogg strode through the doorway and into an office space. There lay a desk, and behind this sat the tall one. His body looked to be about 8 feet tall, but that was more or less proportional in a sort of melty E.T. kind of way. But the head atop his large muscular neck was another matter. The huge cone head skull looked like a tower of bone, the cranial capacity and tapering dome capped by an otherwise monstrous face, with large black eyes, a non-existent nose, and a large mouth of shapely pointed teeth. Sharply pointed, sorry. There was something of the deep-sea predator about the tall one's features, but that was secondary to the PKF vibes he beamed at her. In thought, his voice came on nightmarishly, deep and shockingly loud, as though the thick ice of sanity beneath Nidhogg's feet had just been breached by a powerful explosion. "Nidhogg, I must admit, I really have no idea why you are here. Your record is blemished beyond repair. Your progress report is dismal as it is uninspiring. Now I find you on Mars as if you were ordered here. No such order was issued. Why then are you here with these resources? Who gave you this order?" As he spoke, the tall one's mind raked and groped over Nidhogg's, seeking to find a way in so that this information might be forestalled. She resisted him. Doing this prompted the usual attempts at neural engagement, but when this didn't work, a strong psychic attack followed. Nidhogg felt the tall one's mental assault as a fast onset of migraine headache, accompanied by rushing waves of vertigo. Pain, an oceanic storm of pain, fell upon her. Panic led to heart racing, trembling limbs, with vision starting to fade. A black wall of boiling fear closed in around her, sending Nidhogg into an abyss where she knew waited madness or death. Amid these terrifying experiences, Nidhogg heard a sound, a sonic ringing that grew louder and louder, and the rising din of it threw off the encroaching blackness, seeing it shred away like a rotten tarpaulin. Amishati's voice could be heard speaking above this ringing, its intonation sounding like a melody being harmonized. "What do you think you're doing to Nidhogg, you vicious idiot? I will show you negative reinforcement enough for that 10-gallon head of yours." Nidhogg felt restored and ecstatic to see fear wash over the tall one's incubus face. Amishati danced over to her from out of the shadows, and in a bright flash, she opened the doors of her wraith soul, revealing spiraling lights of Martian chakras. Nidhogg watched as Amishati embraced her, then perceived a subtle linkage between life and death, zero and oneness, Earth and Mars, with the weight of mind, body, and spirit transposing into complete unity. Nidhogg's mouth smiled in a psychokinetic flesh warp, deforming out of frame with her atoms. The voice that flooded through space and time sounded like a meteorite crashing into the sea. "Tall one, vehicle of the collective, prepare to be reassigned." Nidhogg plunged headlong into the tall one's mind space, and from within started to pull his ego apart with psychic claws. Then she shrieked in a duet of ear-splitting voices, causing a twofold tower of 7 lights to flare like mirrored sunlight. The stacked chakras started to shed psychoplasm, causing a mist to flow around her like a skirt of backlit fog. This began to be cooked by astral fire flickering from off Nidhogg, who gazed maniacally at the tall one and lifted a long-fingered hand toward him. Her raven black hair wavered as if aloft in zero-G, flying free in a windless hurricane. The glint off of her black contacts flickered red to black, making the PKF's flesh warp that much more terrible to behold. The tall one started to bray, as though brought to a fit of agony akin to organ failure or dismemberment. His body convulsed spasmodically, with the whole manner of his otherwise fearsome face turned demented by the onrushing torment. Nidhogg's search caused him to clutch his enormous head and claw at his own skull until nails found bone. "We have judged you. Your life force is no longer required. Farewell." Blood started to flood from the tall one's tiny nose, then from eyes and mouth. A cracking, crunching sound could be heard as Nidhogg spun her wrist and made an upturned fist. The tall one howled monstrously, his limbs suddenly bunching into a contorted mass. Nidhogg laughed like a wicked witch as the tall one's overlord head started to rupture and then explode as if an implanted bomb had been detonated. Fragments of skull and warm brain splattered over the walls and ceiling, clattering amid a semi-vaporized cloud of blood mist, culminating in his body slumping over into headless death. Blood jetted out of the gaping neck, the rhythmic pulse slowing as the tall one's heart quaked into stillness. Nidhogg beheld herself in the reflection of a holographic live feed, seeing a binary bindi as well as other lights sequenced down her spine, each with a pair of spectral colors entwined with the other. Astral fire and psychoplasm catalyzed into a blossoming PKF threshold, resembling the aura of a saint or demigod. Nidhogg noticed that she was hovering about 2 feet off the floor and had no trouble in preparing herself in an upright levitation back the way she came. Laughingly, she thought the door off of its tracks, seeing this trivial obstruction blown away and into a pair of onrushing hybrids who worked for the collective. Kayla was nowhere to be seen. Rage soured Nidhogg's already distorted face, and she extended 2 arms in the direction of the masses in order to express grave displeasure. In a flexing of her new level of PKF, Nidhogg screamed at the desk-bound bureaucrats, watching triumphantly as they started to grip their heads or go down nerve-wracked. Monitors, control panels, articles of technology, and bits of personal property began exploding in sequence from one side of the chamber to the other. Supercharged bits of this psychokinetic destruction began peppering those who were still on their feet, puncturing, slashing, or otherwise punching holes through flesh and bone. Screams of the injured or dying sounded in a horrific chorus as dozens of bodies hit the floor. A team of militant hybrids began storming into the chamber through an open door, each armed with a disintegrator. They assembled and took aim, waiting for their orders to fire. A commander shouted at Nidhogg, apparently giving her time to surrender and stand down. "Nidhogg, cease and desist. Get down on your knees and put your hands on the back of your head." Nidhogg barked, a multi-dimensional laugh, and then one by one, the hybrid soldiers started to claw at their own heads, dropping their disintegrators to the floor. Blood poured from their faces in great crimson gouts, and the flesh around their temples began to swell and grow discolored. Then she gestured with her whole body, seeming to shrug, and as she did so, a wall of agonized flesh splattered, sending screaming bodies flying through the air into a dismembered salad of disjointed anatomy. Bones came away from flesh, eyes flew from sockets, and gargling throats gave birth to organs freshly plucked from their seat in the organism. Waves of gastric stench washed over the others, sending them retching or vomiting in every direction. A lone gunman who had somehow evaded her wrath took aim and fired his disintegrator, but Nidhogg perceived the blast and caught it in a PKF field. This sent a dynamic shockwave blowing over the chamber, sweeping grit and detritus away from the impact zone. Nidhogg yanked the disintegrator from the eager young hybrid's grasp and then drew him up off his feet and toward her. In an act of tit-for-tat revenge, she brought up a hand and started manipulating his hovering body. One by one, she pulled his fingers off, his arms. Then the boots unlaced and flew off. Toes were plucked away. Then his knees gave forcefully, bending backward like a bird's legs. His screams were testament to the naked torment he endured. Teeth flew from mouth and into the head of a horrified bureaucrat, smashing into his cranium and killing him instantly. The chamber was reduced to a slaughterhouse with rippling pools of blood and bodies strewn mangled in every corner. Those who lived trembled to see Nidhogg where she floated above them, wishing that they were anywhere but cowering under her baleful shadow. In their minds, she spoke like thunder speaks to the horizon, sounding as if she were ready to attack them again at any moment. Where is Kayla? We must brutalize all of you until she is brought to us. Or is it rather that your masters don't care if you die, so long as they are not inconvenienced? It makes us wonder. Maybe in a few hours, when we've killed several thousand of you, then you will do what we say. And perish the thought that those in charge should harm her or stubbornly keep her from us. Because if that were to happen, then many, many more shall die in the ways they have been, until we grow bored and innovative with our atrocities. In fact, we will kill every single one of you the hard way until we are reunited. Are you ready for that? All Nidhogg heard was a mob of moaning, terrorized life forms wallowing on the ground. The telepathy was cold. Her voice came back even louder than before. Fine then, have it your way. Well, I warned you. That one's got a bit of a kick. That was chapter 10, the tall one. Nidhogg Chronicles is the book, Crusade of Shadows. Nidhogg Chronicles, Crusade of Shadows by Richard Andrew Olkus. Yeah, this book is very intense and lots of cool stuff happens. And whenever it's very creepy or violent, I plan on giving you a disclaimer because I feel the need to do so. Anyway, thank you for listening to that reading. Nidhogg has a lot more adventures before this book's over. Head on over to joeswritersclub.com. Sign up at joeswriters.club. Check our social media, JWC, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And most importantly, head over to our YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe if you like the content, if you feel someone would benefit from it. Someone who likes to read paranormal fiction, horror, or someone who is writing paranormal fiction, horror. It may aid them. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again real soon. Make sure you guys stay creative. The rewards are many. Take care. No. JWC is out there to help make you guys different writers. You have to make yourself better writers through obsession or discipline or whatever you want to call it. But sometimes different writing is just what you need. That's what we're all about. You know, Terrestrial existence is filled with mysteries, ufology, alien abduction phenomena, cryptid encounters, lost civilizations, and hyperdimensional entities invading our universe from a chilling elsewhere beyond imagining. Enter Nidhogg, a Phase 5, Stage 6 hybrid belonging to a selective breeding program whose goal it is to perfect human-like host bodies by way of a controlled mutation. These genetic modified hosts are intended to convey the collective's awesome telepresence. Collective, a group of big brain telepaths who dwell somewhere in the center of the earth, cannot dwell above without dire consequences to their well-being. Nidhogg belongs to a valued bloodline regarding this slow process, but she hates her involvement and resists the collective with every fiber of her being. She has been scorned, persecuted, and abused by those above and below, and belongs fully to neither world. Nidhogg's life takes a turn for the worse as she mismanages someone significant from her past. This sets off a chain of events that sees her dreams scattered, her will tested, and the very nature of existence questioned. Will she rise to the challenge, or must she fall into program termination and personal annihilation like so many of her other failed hybrids? That's the blurb, folks. I mean, having a blast here, trying to turn this thing off. That's just unbelievable.